Good evening, everyone. We are continuing on with First Kings chapter 9, and we should finish our chapter today because it gives us a lot of locations where we are not exactly sure for a number of them, but it paints a picture of activities that's happening that Solomon is continuing to do from verse 17 onwards. And so I just wanted to highlight, and then this is the and then. After the commentary narrative just before this, we spoke about Gezer, and this was a parting gift by the Pharaoh to his daughter as she was married to Solomon. And Solomon rebuilt Gezer. Remember, yesterday we were saying that uh, Pharaoh came, destroyed, burned down, and now it's time to rebuild Gezer. Now, in the good old days, this is how people rebuilt things. We had the description of Gezer, and Gezer would have been constructed. And then he came and he burnt it all down, right? He burnt it all down. And so as it was burned down, we have ruins. And that's the idea here, ruins. In the ruins, they rebuilt on top of it. And so what they would have done is they would have leveled it and Solomon began to build on top again. And so when you go to a ruin, you would find the explanation of layers of civilization. And so in Gezer itself, you'd find that this is one layer of civilization, or they could have previous ones, but it is nevertheless built on top of each other. And so things like Megiddo, Hazor, they are there with large numbers of civilization, especially Megiddo being a very popular place. And so Gezer is now reconstructed for Solomon and his purposes. And so this is how rebuilding, that's why it's called rebuild. Now, in English, it is rebuild. The word here is build. And as you translate, I guess, to give the English word within the context, then rebuilding is used right here. But the idea here is build. Build new on top of the old. Now, how they built it, I've just described. And so he continues to build the lower Beth Horon, and then Baalat, and then Tamar. In the wilderness, and when it's talk about the wilderness, is Bamidbar, in the wilderness, in the plain, in the desert, which is in the land of, in this case, Judah. These are places within Judah. Gezer would be a place a bit north in Ephraim, and these will be the Canaanite cities. So remember, one of the things that I had alluded earlier on is that there are many places like Gezer that when they came in to possess the land, they did not dispossess the specific nations that God told them to completely wipe out. And so they are there amongst them. So in verse 19, you see that all the storage cities of which Solomon had, that is the cities for his chariots, the cities for his horsemen, and these are the riders, and everything that it pleased Solomon to build in Jerusalem, Lebanon, and in all the land under his rule. Now, one of the interesting thing is this: you will find this place called Lebanon, and this is north of Galilee, of Galil. And then in all the land under his rule, and these would be lands that I guess you find that it is Israel, I would say Israel plus plus, right? The land of the 12 tribes plus some of the ones that he has conquered that doesn't have a king. And so, for example, the king of Tyre, which is Hiram, would it be have been his good friend? And so he wouldn't go there to touch that. But in other locations, and we are not told exactly where. And so that's the point I wanted to highlight, is that there are many locations that we are not told exactly in detail within this chapter. Now, verse 20 is interesting. Verse 19 talks about storage places. If you recall, this is very much a strategic way of keeping food across the places within Israel for warriors as well, so that they are able to engage in warfare very quickly without having to go to a central. And so they have distributed warehouses. Now, from verse 20, it says, all the people who were left of the Amorites, Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, who were not of the sons of Israel. Now, these ones are important for us to remember. They were the ones who were told to dispossess. You would have read about them in, I guess, in the book of Genesis, and then in the book of Joshua, and they are told to actually remove them. So if you go back and read Genesis 15, and then you can see verse 19 to 21. These are the lands that they are supposed to take over: the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, and they were the ones who were supposed to be repelled and removed, but they didn't. They didn't. Right? And Judges chapter 1 also tells us that they didn't finish the job. And when they don't finish the job, then things happen. Uh, the reason that they didn't finish the job, and they would have all these problems that will befall them, and it happened in the book of Judges, and it's still happening now in First Kings chapter 9. And so, because the authority of King David and now King Solomon is so vast, it's called the golden years of the nation of Israel. Solomon actually has consolidated his power. The surrounding lands are subservient to him. People like King Hiram would give gifts or tribute to King Solomon. And of course, in later years, you find that the kings of Judah had to give tribute to Nebuchadnezzar. And so the weaker will have to give to the stronger. And so we are told King Solomon right now is the strongest in the lands around there. Their descendants were left after them in the land, whom the sons of Israel were unable to completely eliminate from them. Solomon conscripted forced laborers to this day. Now we need to just identify a couple of words here. The idea is that when they were unable to completely eliminate. The idea of completely eliminate comes from the word haram. Now, this is a word that keeps repeating itself in the book of the prophets. And it has a broad range of meaning. This would also mean completely destroy. You have the word annihilate. Uh, you have exterminate. And these were the instructions that were given by God to the Israelites. The other word that is commonly used is ban, that they were banned completely. So the action of ban completely is to completely destroy, annihilate, or exterminate. And since the sons of Israel did not do that, or unable to do that, now unable uh, gives us the connotation that they weren't able, they were not uh, they were not able, did not have strength, because these were very strong, but they were not able to completely destroy. They did take over much of the land, much of the cities, but not completely eliminate or annihilate. Now, when that didn't happen, you find that this will be, they are used as forced laborers. Now, the English here uses forced laborers. It's also a, what we'll call a levy, a tax. Now, remember yesterday when we talked about this, same words, and within the context, it has multiple meanings. One is in the form of money, one is in the form of labor. And so it was seen that in kind, of course, those who have money give money, and that's called tax. Those who cannot give money, in this case, will become laborers. And these people of Amorites, Hittite, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites became laborers to this day. Now, to this day is a time of writing. So whenever we read words like this, don't think of it as today. Think of it as the day when they were writing this history down. These are all prophetic words of history. Verse 22, but Solomon did not make slaves of the sons of Israel. Now, the difference here is for the non-Israelites, they were made into forced laborers or laborers. The word slaves are actually servants. It comes from the word evet, servants, to listen to the masters. And so Solomon did not make them servants. Now, I don't quite like the word slaves, but the NASB uses that, so we'll leave it there. It's not wrong, but it's not in the modern day concept of slaves. Slavery is not quite the same as in the 18th and 19th century of the sons of Israel. The sons of Israel, on the other hand, were used as men of war. They are to defend Israel. So they are men of war. And they are called also his servants. It is the same word. The word slaves and the word servants are exactly the same. The English likes to differentiate it to denigrate one group. But if, as long as you know that these were the kind of servants that will listen to do the hard labor, and these will be servants that will go to war. Now, who has a better life? Well, not up to discussion, but these were the ones who were willing to die to protect the nation. The non-Israelites were there to do work, or labor for construction for Israel. So became his commanders, his charioteers, his chariot commanders, his horsemen. And so it says these were the chief officers, these were the commanders who were in charge of Solomon's work, 550 of them who ruled over the people doing the work. Who are these? So you can say that these are the people doing the work, and we can say that these is connected, right? These people and these people are the same. Next comes a little description about the construction for the wife. So as soon as Pharaoh's daughter came up from the city of David to her house, which Solomon had built for her, he then built the Milo. Now remember what I had described yesterday. There were three parts. Now the three parts are important for us to remember in Jerusalem. And so we will find that this would be the city of David. This would be the Milo, and this would be the temple. And so when we have the temple here, we have the city of David, and then we have the Milo. The Milo is constructed in a way where it is also connecting the two together. But we don't have the plans, but this is basically what it's saying. Solomon had built the Milo after he had taken care of the Pharaoh's daughter's house. In verse 25, says, now 3 times a year Solomon offered burnt offerings, peace offerings on the altar which he had built for the Lord, burning incense with them, which was before the Lord. So he finished the house. Now this would be the temple, right? This would be the temple. The altar would have been the huge, copper altar, and the 3 times would be the Passover, the Pentecost, and Sukkot. 3 times a year they are supposed to come and offer. And so burnt offerings are offerings that, well, we call it burnt offerings. The word here is olah, right? It's olah. And this really means something that rises up, right? Something that rises up. And so when they have the offering that is burned, and so what you have rising up are 2 things. One is the smoke, and the second is the aroma. And hence it's called the burnt offering. All right. The peace offering, on the other hand, is shalem. And so we have this word peace offering, which is shalem, and it is offered also on the altar, and it's burned, right? It's also burned, but these are voluntary offerings of thanksgiving. And so, although both are burn, you find that the English word is a bit misleading because we call it burnt offering. But in the Hebrew, this is olah and this is shalem. And so the Hebrew sounds are completely different. And in the minds of the Hebrew people, they know that they are two different offerings. But to call it burnt offering and peace offering, and yet the peace offering is also burnt, then we get confused in the English language reading. And so that is why I introduced this word olah, so that you understand that the translation of burnt offering is actually an English expression. And then he had burnt incense. Now you also find that whenever he says he did, he actually didn't do it himself. You see, he um offered. Now he's a king, right? And these are work for the priests. So whenever you say he offered, he finished, he built. Remember, Solomon is king. So he doesn't actually put his hand to the job. And so these are all delegated. But it is ascribed to him because he instructed it. That would be how you will read this. He finished, uh, he had built, right? He offered. These are just mere descriptors, not that he himself actually went to slaughter the animal or he carried the stones to construct the building. He is king. So understand that this is the expression of the ascribing the authority and the responsibility to Solomon. Verse 26. King Solomon also built a fleet of ships. Now, this would be very interesting. Um, it says here, uh, this word here, a fleet of ships, I think would be a correct way of looking at it. Uh, this would be Oni, a fleet of ships, meaning more than one. But it is a collective noun. And so when you talk about Oni in this sense, uh, it can mean two things. It can mean a ship or a collection of ships, right? Both are good. So it doesn't make much sense if he only built one ship. Now understand that he has access to a lot of wood, and so he can afford to make many ships. In those days, wood is a rare commodity. And so having a ship means that you are very rich. So one ship is rich, many ships is very rich. And then you see that they he has it here in Etzion Gever. Now, Etzion Gever uh, is beside Elot. Elot, uh, Elot actually is. I I I think we could actually safely say that this is uh another word is Elat, right? Elat. That would be on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. So if I were to draw this out for you, you'd find that this is the Gulf of Aqaba, This is the Gulf of Aqaba. And Elot would probably be here. Maybe it's not Elot, but Elot. But because it says in the land of Edom, it would be somewhere here. This would be the Arabian Peninsula. This would be the Sinai Peninsula. And this would be Israel. This is Edom. And this is Egypt. And it is a port. And so you have to have ships near a port. And that would be this place here, Elot, on the shore of the Reed Sea, if you want to call it Yam Suf. The Hebrew always uses the word Yam Suf, but in the English, we always translate it as the Red Sea. And so this would be the sea itself. In verse 27, and Hiram sent his servants with the fleet sailors who knew the sea, along with the servants of Solomon. Now, understand this. Hiram. So let me just, if I were to draw this map out for you, Hiram would be here in Tyre. Okay. This would be where Hiram is. And he has the coast, right? He has the coast. But we also have this. And Elot will be here, right? These are all the sea. And so Hiram himself is also very good with seafaring. And when we talked about constructing the ships, I think Hiram would have assisted because the ships would have been made of wood, and cypress wood would have come from Tyre. And so that would be how closely linked Hiram is with Solomon. And so we have sailors or navigators of the sea. This is navigators who knew the sea. And in those days, they already had very good navigation in the sea, knowing where to go. And Hiram, being part of the Phoenician, the coastal tribes, came from the sea, from other parts of the Mediterranean Sea. And so they are very familiar with the sea navigation, and they would know how to traverse using the stars, and they would learn and teach Solomon. And so Solomon would then take over this part of the location or the geography. Next, in verse 28, as we come to a close, they went to Ophir. Now, Ophir is, how should we say? Ophir is it's a place where there is gold. That's yeah, the place where there is gold. We think of this place would be somewhere in the east. And so this word here, and then, which means that they would have to have the ships sail out towards the east to Ophir. And in Ophir, they are there to receive 420 talents of gold. And he brought it to King Solomon. That's a lot of gold. That's a lot of gold. Earlier on, when we were reading about King Hiram, King Hiram in verse 14, Hiram gave Solomon 120 pieces or talents. But now the ships would have gone out and fetched the gold from Ophir, somewhere in the east. Exactly where, I really don't know. But there is gold and brought it back to King Solomon. So you find that from the start of the chapter to the end of the chapter, King Solomon is definitely the king of the ages at that point in time. He was absolutely the king of all kings. Uh, Even the Pharaoh, being a very powerful figure, uh, had offered the daughter to be married to King Solomon so that there is peace between the two nations, that they won't fight. They are now familial related. Very, very common in the ancient world where daughters are given to kings as a token of a peace treaty. But we can safely say that King Solomon is definitely the king above all kings of his time. And with this, we come to the end of our session today.